he continues to be there for himself, to try and block the help we're delivering to Canadians, to make sure everyone thinks everything is broken, because he's busy breaking it.
He's been Prime Minister for 9 years, Mr. Speaker.
We're back to question period, where Pierre confronted Trudeau with facts about bullying his female cabinet ministers, and Trudeau can only respond by projecting. So yes, this is a typical day in question period.
Let's take a look.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This week, Prime Minister has lost control of the borders, lost control of immigration, lost control of spending, debt, and inflation. Now he's lost control of his own cabinet. Yesterday, the Globe and Mail reported that there's a big fiscal feud that has broken out between the Prime Minister and his Finance Minister. At stake is that she wanted to run a gigantic $40 billion deficit, but that was her guardrail. And now this Prime Minister is pushing her through that guardrail and pushing all Canadians off the fiscal cliff. Why?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the Conservative leader likes to make up little dramas to try and distract Canadians from the fact that he voted against a tax break for all Canadians. He's trying to hide from the fact that he continues to muzzle his own MPs so they cannot be their community's voices in Ottawa, instead being his voice in forcing them to face billions of dollars in cuts to housing programs. He continues to refuse to get his security clearance because he doesn't want to keep his own MPs safe from foreign interference. That's why he's trying to distract Canadians from what's going on.
Well, it's the same old tired talking points from Trudeau. I'm going to stick a link in the description yet again that describes what he's talking about in terms of Pierre, quote unquote, not allowing his MPs to be their voice in Ottawa, etc., etc. Check out the video we did about that in the description.
Yeah, so there's a lot in there. Okay, so what's first? First things first. So Pierre talked about a feud that was going on in cabinet between the Prime Minister's office, PMO, and the Minister of Finance's office, Chrystia Freeland. Now, Pierre didn't just make this up. This actually came from the Globe and Mail. Now, the Globe and Mail, if you wanted to put them on the political bias spectrum, I would put them just a little bit to the left. So it's not like the National Post or the Toronto Sun came out with this. You would kind of expect it from them. This came out from the Globe and Mail. So what it actually said was that it was very similar to what Pierre was talking about there, in that Freeland's office was like, I don't think this is a good idea. She was actually against the GST elimination, and she's against the $250 check. Why? Because it blows through the $40 billion guardrail that she was like, we're not going through this, everybody. Well, look at where we are. They haven't had the capital gains tax revenue that they anticipated having because they screwed themselves at the budget by pulling it out of there to try and make it a wedge issue versus the Conservatives. So that was a disaster for them. And now they're going to have to fork out a whole bunch of money in order to secure the border and in order to address Trump's threat of the tariffs coming up. So what are you going to cut? Oh, right. The Liberals don't like cutting anything. So what they are going to do, most likely, is just borrow more money, which means that deficit gets that much higher. So this is what that little spat is talking about. And it also referenced the disagreement or the quote-unquote leaked story that happened earlier in the summer when it was speculated that Trudeau may replace Freeland as the finance minister and that he wasn't happy with her performance. So he's not happy with her performance, but he's the one that's pushing her to actually increase the spending. And this kind of culminated in her appearance at the Senate committee last week when she was forced to explain this. And all of the senators were just looking at her blankly saying, this is stupid. Why are you doing this?
And we are hoping to get to that committee as well sometime very soon.
Yes. So Then it goes to the Trudeau and criticizing Pierre about his security clearance. Again, Trudeau says he won't get the security clearance, so he can't keep his MPs safe. Well, again, according to what has been talked about with the NSICOP committee, with the restrictions on receiving that briefing, Pierre literally cannot act on anything as a result of getting that briefing.
But you know who can, and whose responsibility it is the Prime Minister. Why is Justin Trudeau not telling the public, not telling the leaders, not telling any of us who these 11 MPs are? It's fully within his purview to do so. So why isn't he?
So that's the real question. Justin Trudeau, why aren't you keeping MPs safe?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Muzzling, Mr. Speaker. His Liberal MPs are not speaking out against him because he's allowing so much liberty. It's because he's so weak. Right. And there's nothing worse than a weak bully. He's now cracking down on his own finance minister, some feminist. On this side of this house, I lead by inspiration while he leads by intimidation. Once again, why won't he follow my inspiration and stand up for the promise that he made to keep the deficit under $40 billion?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, we see very clearly for the Leader of the Opposition, it's all about him. Well, for us, Mr. Speaker, it's all about Canadians. It's all about giving Canadians a tax break over the next 2 months that the Conservative Leader voted against. Right. It's about delivering dental care to 1.2 million Canadians, where 3 million Canadians are already approved to access dental care in the coming year. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, we continue to be there for Canadians. He continues to be there for himself to try and block the help we're delivering to Canadians to make sure everyone thinks everything is broken because he's busy breaking it.
What? He's busy breaking it.
How is he busy breaking it? He's not the one in power.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, I know we keep saying it, but this is a new low for gaslighting.
Well, this is just a talking point so that they can trot this out in front of the media, trot this out on social media, and be like, look, everybody, Pierre Poilievre is breaking dental care, I guess, in this case. But you can replace any service or any government program. I mean, the fact is, the opposition's job is to oppose. They're supposed to raise their hand and go, you guys are spending way too much money. We don't want you to spend any more. We don't want you to expand the dental care program because it's too expensive. I mean, what did Trudeau just say? It was going to benefit just over 1 million new
1.2 million, yeah.
Yeah, and it's already benefiting 3. So you figure it's benefiting about 10% of the country. 100% of the country is paying for this right now.
Right.
My child is paying for this. My grandchildren that aren't even born yet are going to be paying for this because we're in a deficit budget. That's how this works.
And it's something else where you said, oh, it's all about him. How is it all about him? And you guys are saying, well, we're going to be there for Canadians. No, you're banging down the door off its hinges to get into people's houses and saying, we're here to help whether you like it or not.
Do not resist.
Yeah, resistance is futile. We want to make sure that you are as dependent on the government as possible so that you have to keep voting for us.
But how messed up is that you have a program that 100% of Canadians are paying for, but only 10% can access? You know why our GDP is down? It's because of programs like this.
Right.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He's been Prime Minister for 9 years. Let's review the chronology. So, not even 8 months ago, his minister said the deficit would not exceed $40 billion, the guardrail. Then, he went and got his banker friend, Carbon Tax Carney, to become his top economic advisor, stripping the power away from his finance minister. And suddenly, the guardrail was broken. Is he really going to subject his finance minister to the humiliation of reading Carney's fiscal update, which busts through the guardrail?
And this is the funny thing about this whole thing, because Pierre's right. Justin Trudeau made this big dog and pony show about Mark Carney coming in, and they had this big press conference about him being, this financial advisor on this committee, the committee of one, being Mark Carney.
Right, and he gets to skirt ethics laws, the laws that are in place to keep the MPs in line and make sure there's no conflict of interest with them. But because he's not an MP, I guess he doesn't have to answer to these laws.
So this is a really, really smart move by Pierre and the Conservatives, because they're essentially saying, okay, so Mark Carney is now here to make sure they're more fiscally responsible. That has resulted in now you're spending more money and busting through these quote unquote guardrails that the Liberals set for themselves. Like, it's to quote Franco Terrazzano, it's like Freeland wrote herself her own test with the answers and then proceeded to answer the questions incorrectly on her own test. That's basically what has happened here. So Justin Trudeau, you're wearing this, buddy. Like, whether you want to or not, you are wearing this. And 7 out of 10 Canadians, they don't believe that any of this, smoke and mirrors, GST holiday and $250 check crap is actually going to do anything worthwhile for them, and it's not going to influence their vote. So all you're doing is costing our grandchildren and their grandchildren more money.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this morning, the Bank of Canada announced interest rates are going down yet again. That is terrible news for the Leader of the Opposition, but it's great news for Canadians, for whom things will become more affordable. On top of that, a tax break out for Canadians over the next 2 months that the Leader of the Opposition voted against. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because he cares more about his own political interests than he does about Canadians who are struggling.
So this from the guy that fired Jody Wilson-Raybould because she wouldn't capitulate to a political deal that he wanted the government to give to SNC-Lavalin, and then lied about doing that, only to then say, oh, well, I'm sorry about how this was reported. Like, literally committing a crime, obstruction of justice. And he's trying to say that Pierre and the Conservatives are only concerned about their political aspirations. So, as regard to the rate dropping, ladies and gentlemen, interest rates coming down is a good thing.
For Canadians.
Interest rates coming down really fast is not a good thing.
Not for our economy.
And we actually go into a deeper discussion on Northern Dispatch that will be airing on Thursday of this week. So make sure you check that out. And there's a special guest that is joining the show along with Tanya, myself, and Harrison Faulkner. So check that out, because we actually talk about that in a bit more detail. But dropping interest rates quickly may be good for your mortgage in the short term, but it does not signal a healthy economy at all.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Donald Trump is a bully, and bullies prey on weakness. When Trump says jump, the Prime Minister says how high. And when Trump trash talks Canada, the Leader of the Conservatives repeats that garbage. And when Trump trolls Canada, hundreds and thousands of Canadians worry that they might lose their job. Why won't the Prime Minister fight back and protect Canadian jobs?
The real question is, why won't Jagmeet Singh vote down a weak government?
Well, that's it. He's standing up here talking trash like he's not the problem. He's not the only problem. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the Bloc just voted non-confidence in the government. So what's stopping the NDP? Oh, that's right, your pension.
Right. Like, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are no longer the biggest problem Canada has right now.
No, it's the NDP. It's Jagmeet Singh and the NDP.
100%.
Because if they had voted non-confidence when we were there on Monday, then we wouldn't be sitting here right now commenting on question period.
Right.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, The job of a Canadian Prime Minister is to stand up for Canadian jobs, for Canadian workers, the Canadian economy. That is exactly what we are doing with a level of serious and a level of focus and, quite frankly, a Team Canada approach that brings together, the Premiers brings together different actors from unions, from businesses, from expertise across the country. That is why we will continue to take this seriously, not freak out like the NDP or repeat the attacks like the Conservatives. We will stand up for Canadians like we have before, as we will again.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Quote, Finance Minister, 2022. This is a line we shall not cross. Then she listed 3 lines. 1, that the deficit would only go down. It went up. 2, that she would pay off the COVID debt. Not only has she not paid off a penny, the debt has gone up. And 3, that the debt to GDP ratio would only drop, and it has risen. Did the Finance Minister voluntarily cross her own lines, or did the Prime Minister push her?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is once again putting on his little dramatic acts because he is trying to distract Canadians from the core facts.
Distract from the core facts. He just quoted the Finance Minister and stated 3 things that she'd stated. Interesting how she's not in the House, by the way.
Yes, that's right. She wasn't there when we were there for the vote on Monday either. It's really clever Pierre's strategy because he's pitting the Finance Minister against the Prime Minister, making the Prime Minister seem like some sort of bully for pushing Freeland beyond her limits and beyond what's best for the country. He's really painting Trudeau in a very bad light.
Well, and this strategy is not for the House of Commons, folks.
No.
This is for liberal women. That's what this is for.
Absolutely.
The liberal women that are watching this and they are listening to Pierre try to paint the false feminist, Justin Trudeau, as this guy that just, pushes his women cabinet ministers around, doesn't care what they have to say, acknowledges their tokenism that they're there, but then just tells them what to do no matter, what expertise they bring to the table. And Pierre has shown this with Jody Wilson-Raybould, Jane Philpott, the most recent interview, her name escapes me, who was with Jordan Peterson, and now you're talking about Chrystia Freeland. So it's just example after example after example of Justin Trudeau having his token women around him on his cabinet, but then not giving a damn what they say and telling them, I'm the Prime Minister and you're going to do what I tell you to do. How about that?
Right. And who are Justin Trudeau's most ardent supporters right now? It's women. It's women 55 and older and women my age in the workforce. So Pierre's very smart by highlighting this, by showing that Justin Trudeau really doesn't respect his Finance Minister as a woman, as someone, as a leader in her own right. No, all he cares about is making her do exactly what he wants.
Now, the rest of us don't respect Justin Trudeau's Finance Minister because she has no idea what she's doing and she has no training in finance. So.
Right.
But Pierre isn't speaking to us. He's speaking to the people that actually are still supporting Justin Trudeau.
Interest rates are down again. Canadians will be getting a tax break over the next 2 months, despite the best efforts of the Conservative leader, who once again, twice this past week, saw that this House has no confidence in him. And third, 3 million Canadians are now approved for access to dental care for the coming year. These are things that he stood against, but Canadians are getting anyway.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is silencing his own Finance Minister. She was already wildly irresponsible with the public purse, but not irresponsible enough for him. She wanted to keep the deficit at a already massive $40 billion. He said it's not enough. Canadians are not paying enough inflation, according to him. So once again, did she voluntarily smash through her fiscal guardrail, or did he push her?
Yeah.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition puts on these little performances because he wants to try and distract Canadians from the facts. We have the lowest deficit amongst G7 countries and will continue to. We are the third largest receiver in the world of foreign direct investment, #1 per capita in the G20, because countries around the world and companies around the world have confidence not just in Canada but in Canadians. The question that people should ask is, why doesn't the Leader of the Opposition have confidence in Canada or confidence in Canadians?
I don't think that's the case at all. I think the Leader of the Opposition and most of us see that Canada, it's not what it used to be, right? We have seen how amazing our country has been in the past and how it has fallen into disrepute under the Liberals. And we want our old Canada back.
We have the smallest deficit of the G7 because we're basically the smallest country and smallest economy of the G7. So let's just get that straight right now. As for foreign investment, Trudeau, you've had to bribe companies $16 billion in order to quote unquote invest in Canada. So how are they actually investing in Canada when you're paying them to invest in Canada?
Well, and this new capital gains tax increase is just going to make that investment go elsewhere, even if you are bribing them to get here in the first place.
Right, because the capital gains tax is essentially targeting corporations. So when you're increasing the tax rates on corporations, that's going to make them less likely and less incentivized to actually set up shop in Canada. Even Canadians, why would they set up a corporation in Canada when they can set it up in the United States for less money? Like, this is not rocket science, but apparently it's rocket science to a drama teacher.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Canadians do not have confidence in him, nor does his own party or his own cabinet, nor apparently does the Bank of Canada, which today was forced into an emergency panicked rate cut to confront the collapsing economy. The governor of the bank said the economy is softer than he expected it would be, and despite the fact that inflation is rising, that all four measures of it are above the target, he's being forced to cut the rates to save the economy from outright collapse. When will the Prime Minister stop breaking the economy and call a carbon tax election so we can fix it?
Again, I'm going to ask members not to take the floor unless recognized by the chair. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mais c'est carrément du
This is completely illogical.
Say that in English. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, he's just making this stuff up in a way you couldn't believe. Inflation has been within the target range of the Bank of Canada for over 10 months now. This is because we have been there to help Canadians with things like dental care, like a school food program, with investments that are growing the economy in a way that has brought down inflation and allowed the Bank of Canada to cut rates faster than just about any other G7 country.
Okay, folks. If you believe the Liberals, which none of us do,
But let's just pretend.
let's pretend that you believe the Liberals. Inflation soaring was not the fault of the Liberal government under Justin Trudeau, and they could do nothing to stop it from soaring under Justin Trudeau's Liberal government. But inflation falling and interest rates dropping like a stone, that's a direct cause of Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government.
And he's a hero, and we should all be thankful.
Doesn't this seem a little strange to you if he can't control it going up, but he can control it coming down? That doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it?
No, it's either that he can control in both ways based on the policies that are put in place, or he can control it in neither direction.
And because he's brought this up, we're going to talk about it just a little bit. So, inflation is coming down. Does that mean that everything is getting because what's inflation? Inflation is things are continually getting more expensive, right? So even if inflation drops from 8% to 3%, it doesn't mean prices are going down. It means prices are going up just slower than they were. That's basically what inflation is. So does the current inflation rate mean that everything is only going up in price around 2%? No, it doesn't. That number is essentially an average of a bunch of different tracks that the Consumer Price Index, keeps track of, the Bank of Canada keep track of. One of the biggest problems right now is that you have non-essentials that nobody's buying right now.
Because nobody can afford to buy them.
Nobody has any money, and they are dropping really, really quickly. So they are in a negative inflation perspective. So they're effectively going down in price because nobody is buying them. So that's dragging the inflation rate low. What is still very high at like 5 or 6% is things like gas, is things like electricity, your essentials, food,
housing.
All of that is really, really high. But the non-essentials are so low that they're dragging the rate down. And this all comes out to this 2% rate, which he's like jumping up and down and cheering about. So this is the issue with this. And because people are not buying non-essential items, that has a big impact on the economy. You're seeing businesses fold up shop left, right, and center. If the economy is going so well, why is that happening? If the economy is going so well, why is our GDP per capita, remember the pizza video where this is essentially your slice of the whole economy, if that slice is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, how can the economy be doing so well? This is the problem. And this is what Pierre's talking about. So our cost of living crisis is getting worse, and our standard of living in Canada is getting much, much worse. And this is why interest rates are dropping like a stone. It's to incentivize investment into the economy. But the problem is, nobody has any money.
You know what's up? Inflation's up. All four measures of inflation are now above target. Unemployment's up. In Toronto, it's over 10%. You know what else is up? Housing costs. They've actually doubled. They've risen more than in any other country in the G7. You know what else is up? Food bank use is up. It too has doubled, with 2 million people lined up at the food bank. And you know what else is up again? The promise-breaking inflationary deficit. So why doesn't he tell us, if he's figured out how to count, what the deficit will be this year?
Right. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the challenges faced by the Leader of the Opposition is that he's spent so long explaining to Canadians that everything is broken that when things start to get better, he refuses to actually help Canadians. He's voted against a tax break for Canadians over the next few months. He's voted against the dental care that's helped already well over 1 million Canadians. He is stuck in a place where, as Canadians are starting to come through the difficult times the global economy has put them in, he needs to continue to talk down Canadians, talk down our economy, and scare people into voting for him. It won't work.
The global economy has put Canadians in difficult times. Did you hear that?
Yeah, but Trudeau has saved them from it.
It was totally out of his control. It was the global economy that got us here, but he's going to rescue us somehow.
Well, and again, he's saying things are getting better for Canadians. Okay, imagine this, right? Let's put this in a different way. You're on a boat, and the boat is sailing along, right? And all of a sudden, COVID happens. Now, symbolizing COVID happening is half of the passengers get thrown off the boat. and the boat sailing away is inflation. So you're trying to swim after this boat. That's you spending money on things. But the boat is increasing speed. And it's sailing away from you much, much faster than you can swim. Now, you're still swimming after this thing and you're seeing it disappear into the sunset with your dreams and your college fund and your dream of owning a home. Now, interest rates are coming back down and inflation rate is coming back down. So that boat starts to slow down.
It's still moving forward.
But it's still moving away from you. And you're still swimming, trying to catch up to it. But you never will, because the boat will always be sailing away from you faster than you can swim towards it. So he's trying to say, look, the boat's slowing down. You're still never going to catch up, but the boat's slowing down. That's great for Canadians. No.
Yeah, praise me. It was me who did it, right?
Right. It is not great for Canadians because things are still getting more expensive. Things are still really expensive. So Canadians that are trying to catch up, this is the point. They never will. So Trudeau can say that things are all rosy and wonderful, all he wants. But dude, you're talking as if the prices of everything have reverted to pre-pandemic levels, and they have not, and they never will. So stop with the gaslighting.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister and the entire Liberal caucus voted against taking the GST off new homes, which would have saved up to $50,000 for a young couple trying to buy a home, almost $3,000 a year in lower mortgage payments, and would have stimulated an extra 30,000 additional homes built. Even the Prime Minister's own housing advisor said that this was the best housing policy he's seen in a generation. Why does the Prime Minister insist on taxing young people who are struggling to pay the doubling housing costs that he's brought since he took office?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have long learned that whenever Conservatives make promises, you have to look at the small print. And what the Leader of the Opposition actually proposed was cutting billions of dollars worth of investments to municipalities across the country to create more density, to accelerate the construction of homes, and to cut bureaucracy and red tape.
You keep saying it. We're going to keep posting it. Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Fraser on the quote-unquote Housing Accelerator Fund, and how the Housing Accelerator quote-unquote investments do nothing to build houses.
The Housing Accelerator Fund doesn't go toward the cost of building houses. It doesn't actually lead to the construction of specific homes.
Indeed, members of the Conservative Party have been advocating to invest in their communities, to send money to their mayors. And the Leader of the Opposition wrote a letter in their name saying, no, none of them want those investments in housing. Shame on him, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he's again imagining things. His program does not build homes, it builds bureaucracy. The only density is in his head. Our policy was
I'm going to ask the Honourable, the Leader of the Opposition to withdraw that and to rephrase his question.
It's in his imagination, that's all. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister wants to tax people up to $50,000 on buying a home so that he can give more money to the very bureaucrats that block home building. It's not that his housing funds don't help. It's worse. They actually block new home building with more bureaucrats. So why don't we follow my plan to slash the bureaucracy, axe the tax, and build the homes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the problem with what the Conservative leader is saying, leaving aside the childish insults, is that his own MPs are going behind his back, pleading to the minister.
Yeah, we're not going to let him complete that statement. Because, again...
Check the description.
He
I'm just going to start, I think, putting this video in the description that we did. Basically, the TLDR is that the Liberals are saying, oh, look at these Conservatives. They want to shut down the Housing Accelerator Fund, but they're going to the minister and writing letters on behalf of their constituents to access this money. Yep. Yes.
Behind Pierre's back, allegedly.
Well, number one, it's not behind Pierre's back. But number two, and most importantly, this is a normal function of the MP's job. The MP in any riding, any party, will write to the government to access funds on behalf of their constituents. These are funds that constituents have paid into as tax dollars, and now that they're requesting that these funds be spent back in their communities. This is normal. The fact that the Liberals are taking this and essentially blackmailing the Conservatives with it is what's abnormal. But check out the video in the description for the full breakdown.
Yeah, so we're not going to let him continue this diatribe of disinformation, meaning deliberate, anymore today. There's frankly too much to even talk about as Justin Trudeau gets up and continues to just spew this garbage about everything is great, and the Conservatives are the ones breaking everything, yet he and the NDP are the ones that have had the power to actually do anything, good or bad, for this country. But as we've seen, most of it has been bad. Frankly, just about all of it has been bad. And, you're putting in these ridiculous programs that cost all this money, but you're neglecting things like our military. You're neglecting things like the border, and you're neglecting things like, oh yeah, people's quality of life, food, homes. But no, you want people to get dental care for teeth that they can't even use because they can't even afford food, and you want to talk about a school food program that isn't even into the Senate yet, never mind the House, and you're already starting to try and write checks for this thing. Like, we desperately need an election to stop them spending money with reckless abandon.